September on Teachers' Day 2020, keeping one particular motto, facilitate to elevate. This society, Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature, and providing platform to the entire fraternity, not only to facilitate and elevate them, but also to bring all of them together and stand on a particular platform called iSPELL. And this is our 12th event wherein we have wonderful personalities amongst us, those who are going to tell us about the translating attitude and what are to be there as far as translation is concerned. To row this boat, we have with us Dr. Somali Saha. Dr. Somali is Assistant Professor of English at Government Women's College, Agartala, Tripura. Having 13 years of vast experience in teaching at various government colleges in Tripura, Dr. Somali has obtained PhD on Dalit women's autobiographies from Assam University, Silchar. She has published many research papers in the international and national journals and also has presented her papers. She was the resource person at various international and national conferences and seminars. Northeast India, a cultural revaluation, is her recently edited book by Eastern book publisher Dohas. She has organized many conferences and seminars, and also she is interested in diasporic studies, Dalit literature, Indian writings in English, and she is also passionate about anchoring the programs. Such a wonderful and versatile personality is amongst us as the Master of Ceremonies. Now, I hand over the entire event to Dr. Somali Saha to lead us to the ultimate destination. Somali, the stage is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind introduction. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be the Master of Ceremony of today's e-seminar. And good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all in the 12th event of iSPELL, that is Indian Society for the Promotion of English Language and Literature. And today's e-seminar is on Challenges of Translation is with Dohas. At the outset, I want to extend my hearty welcome to the chief speakers of today's e-seminar, Dr. K.S. Ram and Dr. Uma Ram. You are most welcome on the platform of iSPELL. I warmly welcome the chairperson of today's e-seminar, Mr. Rakesh Kumar Digraskar, in this virtual platform. I also welcome the president of iSPELL, Dr. Jyoti Patil Madam, under whose support and guidance we have started our journey to elevate the fraternity. Now I want to take the opportunity to welcome Dr. G.A. Ghansham sir, the General Secretary of iSPELL, whose inspiring words and encouragement always trigger us to come forward. Last but not the least, I welcome all the members of iSPELL and the scholarly participants who are joining us through Google Meet and Facebook live streaming. Mark Twain once said, "The difference between the right word and the almost right word is really a large matter. It's the difference between lightning and lightning bug." Yes, translation really matters, which affects the reader's response to a literary piece. But one of the biggest challenges in the arena of literary translation is the balance to remain true to the original work while creating an entirely unique piece that evokes the same responses as the original piece. And as far as Doha is concerned, we all know that it is a very old verse format of Indian poetry, which is also a form of self-contained rhyming couplet. And the topic of today's e-seminar is on Challenges of Translation, a Tryst with Dohas. But before that, I want to take the golden opportunity to introduce the chief speakers of today's e-seminar to the learned audience. Dr. K.S. Ram studied in King George's School, Ajmer. He graduated in English, winning the Karnataka University Gold Medal in 1974. He earned his master's in English from Manas Gangotri University of Mysore. He served as lecturer in English, Sarada Vilas College, Mysore for 2 years before joining State Bank of India as PO. After a brief bright stint, he quit the bank to join a cement company as the CEO. He left the commercial sector in 1999 to work in the development sector in Bastard as project director, literacy mission and secretary of Bandhan mission. He was invited to IIMA in 2000 to speak on his innovative strategy for promotion of literacy. Bandhan was listed by UN FAO's non-wood mission among the global best practices in the field of non-timbered forest producers. He was interviewed on Voice of America for this work and was featured in the QA column in the Times of India. For 5 years, he wrote a popular Sunday column on Raipur for the Hitaveda. He had translated into English Adi Sankaracharya's Bhaja Govindam and Annapurna Stotra. His Dohavali, a translation of popular Dohas, first published in 1986, earned the appreciation, among others, of Mulk Raj Anand. He is the author of Vastar and Miscellaneous Poems, a series which he describes as documentary poems. He mooted the idea of Vatsar Lokotsav to showcase the performing arts of tribal Vastar and was his organizing secretary for the first 3 years. He is also the author of Glimpses of Vastar. And now I am introducing Dr. Umaram, who earned her master's in English from Manas Godavari University of Mysore. She taught in Sadada Vilas College, Mysore, and later in Government PG College, Jagdalpur, Bastar, Chhattisgarh, where she was the head of the English department. Her doctoral research was on Indianness as a value in terms of art in modern Indian poetry in English. She has presented papers in several national and international seminars and interacted with students in various universities, including the University of Texas in San Antonio. She received a UGC grant for studying the oral literature in Bastar. She has served as Dean of Faculty of Arts of Bastar University and as member of University Academic Council. Dr. Umar Ram and Dr. K.S. Ram have jointly authored several books, including tribal songs, ballads, and oral epics of Bastar. They have translated into English Guru Charitre, Jayadev Bhagal, an extraordinary journey, and Bhulan Kanda, the modern classic of Sanjeev Bagsi. They are panel contributors to the Times of India, Speaking Tree column, and have published nearly 100 articles till date. Their article, Present Route to Rama, on the songs of Bhadrachala Ramadasa, is included in Prison Writing in India, published by Sahitya Academy, New Delhi. Various other articles have appeared in the Literary Criterion and the leading Indian journal dedicated to translation. Dr. Umar Ram and Dr. K.S. Ram have recently completed a translation into English of D.V.J.'s Kannada classic Mankuttimana Kaga. So we are really fortunate to get these two personalities among us. And sir and madam, we are looking forward to listen to you. The platform is all yours.
Thank you.
Good evening to all. At the outset, my heartfelt congratulations to Team Ghanshyam for establishing a platform for English teachers in Chhattisgarh and elsewhere. Workers' war is mostly to agitate over service conditions. A platform of teachers formed for self-development through weekly interactions is an excellent beginning in Chhattisgarh. These webinars have become a kind of Sunday satsang of English teachers. Team Ghanshyam deserves a standing ovation for this. My best wishes for the future of this forum. Thanks for the opportunity to interact with fellow teachers. The talk today is in 3 parts. A. Challenges of translation. B. A tryst, more appropriately, my exploration of ancient Indian critical tools in art study, understanding, and criticism of literary works in any language, English included. Needless to say, I shall be talking as a small-time practitioner of translation and not as any scholar in this field. It is good that a time frame has been defined for this webinar. I shall follow the discipline. The talk shall take about 40 minutes and reading of the Dohas about 15 minutes. I request your focused attention. Let's start. In 1986, Professor C.D. Narasimhaiah, the doyen of English studies in India, had organized a week-long workshop in Vanyaloka, Mysore, on problems in translation. I was invited to present a paper titled, "What is Literal Translation?" It dealt with the issue from the perspective of Indian poetry. That day, in that small hall in Vanyaloka, Mysore, there were some big names present. Professor C.D. Narasimhaiah, of course, but also Raja Rao, the novelist, Nisim Ezekiel, the poet, P. Lal of Writers' Workshop, Calcutta, Dr. U.R. Ananthamurthy, the Jnanapeeth Awardee, Professor Thirumalesh, Dr. Ramachandra Sharma, Sumantindra Nadi, S.K. Desai, G.S. Samu, and last but not least, my friend and later head of the English department in Manas Gangotri, Dr. C.P. Ravichandra. The response that my short paper, almost a note, elicited rather surprised me. It was beyond my wildest imagination. Almost everyone hailed the argument the paper presented. It almost set a new direction for the proceedings thereafter. I say this without pride. In a matter of fact manner, only highlight as to how little we, especially teachers of English in India, care for our own poetry. To borrow a phrase from the poet Parthasarathy, we perhaps spend too much of our energy pouring after English gods, unquote. The icing on the cake that day was when Professor P. Lal walked up to me with lunch in the room there and offered to publish my translation of the Dohas along with the note. Almost 4 decades later now, I still stand by the argument contained in that note. Today's talk is an attempt to present that argument in new words. 2 terms that literal and be faithful. When a translation is called literal, this is often uttered with an air of disappointment and dismissal. The work is too literal. The other term, faithful, is used as a yardstick to evaluate the merit of a given translation. These 2 terms are commonly used but rarely exactly checked. What is literal translation? What does being faithful to the original mean in real terms? How far can liberties with the original text be taken in the course of translation? Every translator must face these questions squarely. The merit of his translation often depends on his ability to answer these questions to himself or herself. Today, we shall try to find answers to these questions from an Indian perspective. From the Indian viewpoint, every composition, nay, every work of art, whatever the form, painting, sculpture, or poetry, is somewhere only a translation. Translation of the original that was composed in the immanent space in the heart, which is known as the Antar Hridaya Akasha. The experience in the Antar Hridaya Akasha of the artist is complete and an end in itself. The fact that it translates it into some medium is a subsequent and secondary activity. The novelist Rajarao was once saying that he writes for himself. He said, the reader overhears him. How is the original form created in the Antar Hridaya Akasha? Ananda Kumara Swami describes it in his seminal essay, The Theory of Art in Asia. Speaking of a sculptor, he says, the sculptor, and he's quoting from Indian scripture, the sculptor, first through yoga, works up his mental focus. He then contemplates on the Devata as described in a given canon or mantra or shloka. The contemplation produces, he puts a dash between pro and juice. It produces, because the Sanskrit word is akarshati, the form upon the monitor of the inner sky, Antar Hridaya Akasha. The form gets concretized. The sculptor must achieve an identification with this form through focused absorption. This form, formed in the Antar Hridaya Akasha, is the prototype, from which he proceeds to execution in stone, wood, pigment, or other material. Kumaraswamy might well have added in here, proceeds to execution in words. Kumaraswamy calls this process, quote, a highly specialized technique of vision, unquote. 2 points relevant to our purpose here emerge from this passage. The maker of an icon is in fact translating a poem or mantra or shloka into sculpture. This is a reminder that translation need not be from one only point that emerges from the passage quoted above is that the processes of original composition and translation are essentially common and there is no essential difference. Why? How? Every poem, every work of art represents an art experience. Rasan Bhava. Read a poem. What happens to you is a Rasan Bhava. You experience Rasa. The poet, through a unique organization of words, induces or suggests or prompts. These are alternative terms. Induces, suggests, prompts. This Rasa Bhava in the reader. Once this is successfully done, there is no difference between the experience of the poet and the experience of the reader. We can consider here, to understand this point, the example of a sparkler, Fuljadi, that children light in Deepavali. The first Fuljadi is lit using a burning candle or diya. Okay. Once that begins to sparkle, you can light a second sparkler with the first one. The second sparkler begins to sparkle. When you hold the two in your hand, there is no difference between the two. The only difference is in what caused or triggered or induced the sparkle. In the first case, it was the lamp or the diya, an external or imaginary experience, and in the second case, it is the first sparkle. This is somewhat as it is, as what a poem does between the poet and the reader. The Rasanubhava is not transferred to the reader. It is already there in the reader, dormant. The poem only excites it. Just as the second sparkler lit up because it had the essential stuff within it and needed only a prompting, the initial ignition. If that stuff was not in it, if you try to pick an iron rod and try to use it as a sparkler, it won't sparkle because it doesn't have that stuff in it. Now, if the reader happens to be a translator, he will configure a new organization of words in a different language to suggest or induce or prompt the Rasan Bhava the poem gave him in another reader in another language. The poem creates a dhvani in a qualified reader. What does qualified reader mean? The reader must have the same degree of sensitivity and literary refinement that the poet has. Only then can he feel the complete Rasanubhava. In Indian poetics, the term used for such a reader is Sar Hridaya, soulmate. In Urdu, I suppose, they may call Hum Jigar. A poem, however good, can work fully only on Sar Hridaya. This is not my statement, this is a statement of Indian poetics that will be quoted later. If we are partial Saridayas, our Rasanubhava will be partial to that extent. Such readers will accordingly under experience the poet. This is the gist of the rasa of Indian poetry. The biggest exponent of this is Anandavardhana, the Kashmiri scholar of the 9th century, whose Sanskrit treatise Manyaloka remains the standard text on rasa theory to this day. Professor K. Krishnamurti of Karnataka University has made an excellent translation of Vanyaloka in English. Let us return to the question we began with. What is literal translation? And what is faithful translation? A poem, we know. When I say a poem, it refers equally to a story or a novel or any work of literary art. A poem, we know, has two broad components: artha, that is meaning, and bhava, that is sentiment. In a good poem, these two blend. Yet, it is a fact that either one of these is dominant in most works. Depending on the dominant aspect, the rasa classifies poetry into A, Vastu Kavya, and B, Rasa Kavya. In Vastu Kavya, the organization of words directly conveys and conveys meaning. Alexander Pope's concept of poetry comes to mind here. Quote, what oft was thought, but never so well expressed. Unquote. In the Rasa Kavya, the words along with similes and metaphors operate more in a suggestive or evocative way. For details, you may like to refer the book titled by the vacuum created by the death of his dear friend. He is standing on a seashore, watching the mechanical sea waves lashing against the shore. And the world behind him, going about his business, different to his personal thoughts. First line is, break, break, break on thy good break. And I that my tongue utter the thought of the right. If you translate the first line, break, 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 into English, what would you say? Todo, todo, todo? The poem will break. Faithful translation will fall flat like a dead verse. A different set of money divides will be required to recreate in Hindi the Rasanubhava of the poem in English. The word the translator may choose would probably have no dictionary connection with break in English. Now to answer the question we began with. What does being faithful to the original text mean in the context of translation? The answer is, it means being faithful to the Rasanubhava of the original text. All else is secondary. You may take liberties if unavoidable with anything other than the core Rasanubhava. Rasanubhava in literature is often related to the ethnic context of the poem or story. If the ethnicity is common, translation becomes relatively easy. For example, it would be easier to translate a Kannada poem into, say, Telugu than to translate it into, say, Spanish. Further, as Professor P. Lal observed, a translator operates within the framework of Desha and Kala, contextual space and time. I call similes, metaphors, images, etc. one device or tools. We are all aware of no need to dwell on them. There can be some less known funny devices, allusion, for instance. The wasteland of T.S. Eliot, we know, is dense with allusion. He uses allusion as a funny device. Take the very first line. April is the cruelest month. Now, poems or lines such as the above face the risk of under-translation. Now let's move to my tryst with the Dohas. India has a vast range of poetic forms called chandas. I was fascinated by most translation by the context. I was wondering whether our chandas can be created in English. I was most fascinated by the Mandakranta and the excellent use Kalidasa has made of it in Meghdulpa. Hari also has used it in Priyapravas. My desire was to create just a sample piece. As I toiled at the words by Hari All, Radha Jati Prati Divasi, etc., etc., hard though I tried, I failed to do this. In passing, I may mention that in English, the stanza form created just a passing remark because I've never examined the point in depth. Having failed at Mandakranta, I scaled down to what perhaps represents the entry level into Chanda, the Doha. Doha, as the name suggests, is a couplet. It is a rhymed couplet. It has 4 churns, which literally means footstep or stage. Each of the 2 lines has 2 churns. The first and third churns have 13 matras, and the second and fourth churns have 11 matras. Matra literally means quantity or quantum. In the context of Hindi prosody, it refers to the quantum of sound. With a guru matra equated with 2 and a lagu matra equated with 1 count for measuring a line or a part of it. How to create the doha, the poetic form in English? Whereas in Hindi, the length of lines is in poetry is measured in matras. In English poetry, prosody, the lines of a poem are measured in feet. The foot is based on positioning of the stressed and unstressed syllables. There are 6 types of feet we know. 4 of these being most common. These are the anapaes, trochee, dactyl, and iron. There is no formal equation between matras and feet. The ear can be the only judge. Working accordingly, after several trials and errors, it emerged that the doha in English must have 2 lines of 7 feet each, ideally iambic or trochaic, with a caesura after the 4th foot in each line. The 2 lines must rhyme, because rhyme is very central to the rasangama of the doha. Since 7 feet long lines can be clumsy in print, the doha in English, I felt, can also be printed as 4 lines of 4, 3, 4, and 3 feet, with the rhyme pattern being A, B, C, B. Readers of English poetry would quickly recognize this as the ballad stanza. I don't claim to have invented the ballad stanza, certainly not. But I found for myself the correlation between the ballad stanza and the doha in English. Several poets have composed dohas. Prominent among these are Kabir, Rahim, Tulsidas, and Biharidas. The doha is characterized by a terse language which conveys a pithy message. Often, the first line states the message, and the second line lights it up with an imagery or simile. The second line, therefore, is often the catch line. I therefore felt it was wiser in such cases to first translate the second line and thereafter work out the first line. As is common in Indian poetry, the couplet often bears the name of the poet. I felt that this could sound banal in English. I wondered whether I should drop the name. However, soon I found that the name not only comes naturally, but also functionally. What worth is rising high, Kabir, finding something big, Rahim. He finds Kabir who dives deep. The name in the above lines lends an introspective strain as much as the discern or the Dohas can belong to exposing oral tradition. The voice is that of an individual, not a community. But the Dohas have worked for functional, and down the centuries they've acquired a part of every part. They enjoy the stages, parables, proverbs. As is common in oral tradition, the simile, metaphor, and images are picked from everyday life. These, therefore, afford the message a strong and immediate appeal and impact. But they can at times challenge the translator. Let's consider some random challenges. Consider heat. This is from Bihari Lal. Rakho mel kapoor mein hing na det sugam. Now, hing has a very organic connotation in Hindi. But translated as a material, it is a very chemical kind of a thing. Likewise, pativrata. Pativrata, pativrata, naam na le. Now, pativrata is a very Indian value, which in English becomes very difficult to translate. When they quoted chaste, loving, all these convey only part. Adding the footnote is perhaps one way, but then that is in the modern age, pativrata could also evoke operations like gender issues, slavery, etc. In one of Rahim's Dohas, Rahimana Koche Naranate Garo Baranat Kate Chate Swanate Tui Bhati be free. Rahim says, neither be a friend nor be a foe to an Koche Nare petty fellow. Because he's like a dog. If it comes licking or if it comes biting, both are equally repulsive. Now, what has Rahim done in this couplet? He has chosen internal rhyme, kate, chate, to suggest the parity between the repulsion evoked by a dog biting or a dog coming to lick you. Now, if this has to be translated into English, you have to find an equivalent internal rhyme for kate and chate to convey the full rasa. Now, since the basic idea to get the Doha form, sorry, I'll go into back. Now, the Dohas can be said to belong to a quasi-oral tradition. The voice is that of an individual, not of the community. But the Dohas apparently were used for instructional purposes and down centuries have become a part of everyday parlor down to the present time. They enjoy a stature comparable to proverbs. As is common in oral tradition, the similes, metaphor, and imagery are picked from everyday life. These, therefore, afford the message a strong and immediate appeal and punch. But they can at times challenge the translator. Now, again, for instance, Kamala Dhirna Katerati, Yeh Janat Sab Koe, Purush Purasani Ki Vatu Suna Sab Koe. Now, Kamala, Rahim did not have to explain who Kamala is. Everybody knows that it's Lakshmi. He is not his. Would be required also to accommodate that in the Doha translation.
so that you will be in the screen. Uma ma'am, yeah, now you are visible. Yeah, right. Thank you.
Yeah, I read the Hindi original. Uma will read the English. Number 5.
Yeah.
बड़ा हुआ तो क्या हुआ, जैसे पेड़ खजूर, पंछी को छाया नहीं, फल लागे अधिकूर.
What worth is rising high, Kabir? If like the palm you rise, no soothing shade for wayfarers, fruits afar in the skies.
Another by Kabir. This is the book. 17. मूंड उड़ाए हरी बिजली, तो कोयले उड़ाए. बार बार के मूंड से भेड़ न बैकुंठ जाए.
Shaving the head can lead to God, who would remain unshaved? Sheared repeatedly, does it find heaven?
This one is by him. रहीमन धागा प्रेम का, मत तोड़ो चिपकाए. टूटे से फिर न मिले, मिले गांठ भरी जाए.
God will delicate thread of love, never flippantly cut. Cut, it cannot join. Join.
Now, we'll come to 29. जो कुछ किया तो तुम किया, मैं कछु किया ना. कहीं कहीं जो मैं किया, तुम के मोह माए. This is by Kabir.
Whatever was done by you. Nothing was done by me. Here and there, if I did something, it was you.
We come to next one, that is 44 one. This again is by Kabir. करता था तो क्यों किया, अब कर क्यों पछताए. गोया पेड़ बबूल था, आम कहाँ से खाए.
Regret cannot avert, Kabir, the fruits of past misdeeds. Can you gather mangoes, having sown a babool seed?
47. This is by Rahim. जो रहीम सकट कुसंग, चंदन विश्व व्यापत नहीं, लिपटे रहत भुजंग.
What can wise society do to one Rahim chase? Serpents pointing sandal trees cannot infect its face.
49. This is by Bihari Lal. ऊंचे नर के पेट में रहे न मोती बात, आग तेर के पात्र में कैसे तेर समाज.
Petty minds cannot keep top secrets stored. Can a jar designed for a pinch ever a gallon hold?
पोथी पढ़ी पढ़ी जग हुआ, पंडित भयानक कोई. ढाई आखर प्रेम कहा, पढ़े तो पंडित कोई.
Pouring over and perished. None ever grew wise. Study the single syllable love. Wisdom herein lies.
सुख में सुमिरन सब करे, सुख में करे न कोई. तुम्हें सुमिरन करिए दुख काहे को कोई.
In this ease got more commune. None in times of ease. Ease, sees.
Yeah. Now, these were some of the Dohas. A poem. Let us return to the question we began with. What is literal translation? And what is faithful translation? Just a minute. Um, we had considered the example of the sparklers some time ago. Now, returning to that, the reader, if he is a translator, considerates a new organization of words in a different language to suggest or induce or prompt a rasanubhava. The poem gave him in another reader in another language. Now, just a minute. A poem, we know, has two broad components, artha and bhava. That is meaning and sentiment. In a good poem, these two blend. Yet, it is a fact that either one of these is dominant in most words. Depending on the dominant aspect, the rasa school classifies poetry into A, Vastu Kavya, and B, Rasa Kavya. In Vastu Kavya, the organization of words directly make a statement and convey a meaning. Alexander Pope's concept of poetry comes to mind here. Quote, what oft was thought, but never so well expressed. Unquote. Now, the Dohas, we can say, belong to the Vastu Kavya. Now, the name in the above line, friends, now, I think the time is over for this thing. I would like again to thank Dr. Ghanshyam for giving this opportunity to interact with you all. The country is witnessing a renaissance.
Really wonderful. Shumali, Dr. Shumali?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Please carry on.
Yes. How can I thank these two personalities? Thank you, madam. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful presentation. We are not only overwhelmed, we are enriched, we are enthralled by your presentation, and it is really a literary satsang for the lovers of literature. And you have wonderfully analyzed all the parameters and aesthetics of translation. And lastly, the duet, it is unparalleled. And I am feeling so blessed and fortunate to be a part of this session. And through your presentation, it is not that we got to learn so many things about translation and the challenges of translation, but it is the great understanding and the great relation between both of you, which we are enjoying the most. So now I want to invite our chairperson of this session, Mr.
Shumali,
Rakesh Kumar Dikraskar.
Shumali,
Yes, sir.
Shumali, before that you can
Okay,
take
sir.
after
Yeah,
this
yeah.
subject. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Now the session is open for interaction. There are some questions which were
Please
there
proceed.
on chat box.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. The first one is from iSPELL family. Rasanubhava differs from one language to the other. How to feel the same Rasanubhava of the original text in the translated one?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is the problem that the translator has to face, I suppose. So, I can quote here the example of, let's say, but at the same time his strategy is highlighted by the fact that the waves come and lash against the shore in such an indifferent manner, and the whole world is going about its business, regardless of the degree and individual space. Now this poem how would you translate the first line in, say, Hindi? Break, break, break. Would you say todo, todo, todo? The poem will break. Now, it's for the translator to find some correlative for the word break in Hindi or whichever target language you're translating to. That word may not have any dictionary relation to the word break in English. So, there can be no hard and fast way. The Sanubhava created by break, break, break in the mind of an English reader may not be created by Todo in Hindi. It has to be different. Now, these devices, money devices, which we could call them, similes, metaphors, etc., etc. But alongside that, if you take into consideration, let's say, the first line of Eliot's poem, The Wasteland. April is the cruelest month. Now, for an English reader, the moment you read April is the cruelest month, you recall the first line of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, the prologue to Canterbury Tales, when that April with its showering brought his heart through. Now, operates on allusion. Here, you begin to contrast the regenerative, vital April post-war wasteland England of April, which is the fluidest month. Very difficult to translate, to recreate this Rasanubhava in another language unless that person has a knowledge of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales also. So, the writer has to be faithful. The translator has to be faithful to the Rasanubhava. In the course of that, what he does with other things in the poem are of second. They may have no correlation or dictionary relation to what is contained in the poem. I suppose that hints at the challenge of translation. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Here is another question by Dr. Indrani. Won't the real essence of sensitivity and refinement of original emotions be lost in a translated work?
One cannot say this way or that. It would depend upon the translation and the specific work. I mean, one can only say that the challenges involved in translating a predominantly Rasakavya is much greater than the challenge involved in translating a Vastu Kavya. Because Vastu Kavya revolves more around statements. When this point was made, I remember Professor C.N. expressing surprise. He said, but the problem is, when you are doing that, there are these things, the Rasa theory, which they call Vichari Bhavas. They are the incidental Bhavas. They are the incidental Bhavas that rise in the course of the primary Rasanubhava. Maybe you will have to come for that. Now, if you have to translate break into Hindi, I don't know what is the word the translator uses, because that's his or her problem there. And that word may not have any correlation with the dictionary meaning of break. So that would vary. It would be very difficult to suggest any single solution.
And the translation may even explain.
Sometimes it can happen that the translation can be better than the original. They say that of the authorized version of the Bible because that was done by a committee to boot, and an official committee appointed by the government. And that committee, some members said that when they started to work, the Holy Ghost descended upon them, they felt so, whatever that is. But the authorized version of the Bible is a great work in itself. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Another question by Preeti Vyas. Domestication and foreignization are the two strategies by Vanuti. Which one should be followed and why?
Please repeat the question.
Domestication and foreignization are the two strategies by Vanuti. Foreignization are the two strategies by Vanuti. Which one should be followed and why?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question really.
Okay, sir. Then let us move forward to the next one. Pramod Shukla sir wanted from madam to, he requested Uma ma'am to say something on translation on tribal cultural folk song of Pastor. Madam?
Yes. In fact, we have translated some of the oral compositions from Buster when I was doing my research on that, oral epics and oral poems composed by some of the Bastar. So we have translated some of those Halvi poems. And how did we go about it? That is, we went with the Halvi speaking people to the interiors of Bastar, and then we got those poems into our system, and then we discussed those poems Halvi language, and we knew the Halvi language, but we were not very easygoing with that language, but we could understand. So we sat with them, and then we discussed the nuances of those particular words and particular situations there, and then accordingly we translated them into English. It was a big challenge for us, because again, as we say in Aboriginal societies, they have a particular way of saying things. So to translate that into English was a bit challenging for us. But then I can read out some of them to you. But do we have it now? Yeah. So we can have another session of this, because that's a very huge thing that we have done. It's a very big book, and yes, we had some challenges of translation, but then we managed it with the local folk. We took the help of the local people there, and then we got the gist of what they were saying, and we translated some of them.
Yes, madam. Madam, I have one personal query. So both of you have been great translators, and what difficulties have you faced in translating idioms or local expressions where there are no such terms available in the English vocabulary?
There can be no hard and fast rule to follow for that, because it does happen sometimes that you have to resort to a glossary, provide a glossary. And it's not that it's untranslatable, because most often it comes through. Otherwise, I think then...
Because in other language there will be a similar kind of idiom with a similar meaning. So we can take that. But as I said, it is easy to translate from one Indian language to a foreign language. So there the challenges are more when we translate those idioms.
Yeah, that depends upon the ethnicity of the... In a common ethnic group. That's why it's easier to translate from, say, Kannada to Telugu, or from Gujarati to Marathi, than from Kannada to Spanish. Because it's not just a question of poetry, but even for fiction. For instance, let's say somebody in Kannada, if I am to say, or in Hindi, you describe somebody, that person ate one. Would evoke some idea of the economic status of that person. But these same terms in another language, far removed, would perhaps make no meaning unless, or they'd be under-translated. It's not that they won't make it meaning, unless you supplement it with a glossary. That's why when we translated Gulan Kanta, we felt it necessary to include a glossary. That was
many of those terms.
For many of the local terms. A footnote, a glossary, or sometimes in the text, as I can give in the Dohas, there was this thing, Kamala Tirna Kahi Rahim, Ye Janak Sab Koi, Purush Puratan Ki Badu Kyona Charan Ahoy. Now, Rahim did not have to explain who Kamala is. People understood. But for an English reader, I had to weave it in the text of the Kamala, the wealth goddess. Now, unless that is done, you have to either provide a footnote or something. Loses to that extent. Yes. That is why in the same ethnicity it's easy. In a vastly rude ethnicity, it sometimes does create some problems.
So if it is in internal,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Better, easier.
Yeah, Shonali, you may
Yeah.
call the chairperson.
Yes, sir. One last question, sir. Can I go for that?
Yeah, very brief.
Yeah. There is another question by Kitty Tiwari. Raja Rao introduced Kannada idiom into English while using English to write an Indian novel. Can the same thing be done by a translator also?
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes. Raja Rao introduced Kannada idiom into English while using English to write an Indian novel. Can the same thing be done by a translator also?
Oh, surely.
Surely.
Although Kantapura was an exotic experiment, and the English of Kantapura, as Professor Chiyosamu observed,
Very
he
close
said
to
the
Kannada.
English of Kantapura is the English the characters would have spoken if English were Kannada. Now, that was an exotic experiment, but that cannot perhaps be standardized everywhere. But yes, can of course be done. No, not doing that. For that matter, in every novel has, in every novel has sort of found a new diction and a new syntax. But yes, the syntax can be adopted.
State-level teacher trainer for the last 15 years. He is also
Please come together so that we can see you in the same screen. Yeah. Okay. No social distancing, please.
Thank you, ma'am. And it's very good evening to all of you. I feel very honored and humble among virtual meeting are very much benefited. The knowledge and the information you conveyed to all of us. And sir, moreover, you call yourself a small time practitioner. But whosoever are listening to you may not agree with the term you used for yourself. You are far beyond, far above all these mentions, I think. And as you have terms and the formalities and the skills required for translation are really very less discussed. As you said that in your internal heart, that is antar hridaya, you have thoughts, and when they come into black and white or they are spoken, they are a form of translation, of course. Moreover, you have been very keen in introducing various terms and various aspects of translation. So, as you said that when translated, the translator should or must be a Sarida, or you use the term Hamjigar. That is really very necessary, because if in translation the soul of the poetry or the message is conveyed or the emotion portrayed is missing, that is a great loss for the readers who are reading the translated form. Sir, as we know that the very first poetry which was created, and we know about that, was by Valmiki, and it came as Ramayana. So I think sympathy and empathy are two different thoughts, and in my opinion, sympathy is non-productive, because when you sympathize with someone, you only feel, or your emotions act or portray is partial feelings. But once you empathize with someone, that you feel like him, then you know the true pain and grief or the feelings of that person. And I think Valmiki empathized with that Kranj Pakshi. I don't know what is the term for Kranj Pakshi. And after that, he an epic like Ramayana. So empathy, in fact, inspires us to be active and to create something. And if we create something, that makes a big effect on the society. As far as as we have been talking largely about Dohas, and we can say that most of the Dohas, they talk about the moral teachings, and in my opinion, and you all agree, I think you are more familiar with literary terms, that they convey a transcendental meaning, and they are relevant in every age. Some of the dohas which one of you recited, that बड़ा हुआ तो क्या हुआ, जैसे पेड़ खजूर, पंछी को छाया नहीं फल लागे अति दूर. So this is no one can say that this is irrelevant in any of the age or any year or in any society. So that's how the creations which are transcendental, they make their effects on the various time spans. And as I say that the meaning of the poem and the feeling or the emotion depicted in the poem should be very much there, or should not be killed, because you are conveying the thought of a culture. As sir had said that one art is transformed or translated into the other language. It should not be killed, otherwise the culture will also suffer, and the wrong impression or the unclear impression will be conveyed. So that's why the task of translation is a great responsibility. So in no means you can count yourself as a part-time translator or part-time practitioner, sir. That's a great work which you are doing, and to convey the various aspects of one culture to another culture is of course a great work. Moreover, if we see a few works of modern times, like the book that was written in 1948 as 1984 by George Orwell. So, a poet is also a great visionary. You can say that he foresees, or a writer. He can make various examples. But as we can talk about the tragedy, because scenario at that time, and Orwell talks about important facts that time and how they are being elaborated by the Russians. So we see that it is also relevant in this age, and the if it is relevant in this age, if one reader sees that this is very much he can see all around him, it shows the commitment of the writer, his vision, and his keen observation, what makes his creation a transcendental one. In the same manner, in Canterbury Tales, the various characters which have been portrayed.
Rakesh sir, please summarize, sir.
Okay.
Sorry to disturb you.
No, it's all right. I should have paid attention to that also. Okay, sir. So the translation itself is a great task, and it needs great skills. And not everyone can see or think about translating any literary work. Your work, your contribution in this regard, sir, it is matchless, and we are all honored to have you with us and to have interacted with you, and we'll see that if we can make this time again with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable comments. You have nicely summarized all the key aspects and put forward your knowledgeable remarks on that. Thank you once again, sir. Now we are towards the end of the seminar. We are really indebted to the chief speakers, Dr. K.S. Ram and Dr. Uma Ram, for making our Sunday evening memorable with the literary satsang. We are also grateful to our chairperson, sir, for joining us and for enlightening us with his valuable remarks. And I again acknowledge my gratitude to the two pillars of iSPELL, Dr. Jyoti Patil Madam and Dr. Ghansham Sir, for their kind presence. And I must not forget to acknowledge to convey my gratitude to Dr. Pramod Thengle Sir, who took the responsibility to prepare the flyer. And a special thanks goes to Dr. Shaminaz Ma'am for making the live streaming of today's e-seminar on Facebook. And last but not the least, I thank all the scholarly participants for being with us through the Google Meet and Facebook Live. And now this session is over to Dr. Ghansham Sir for his concluding remark. Sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, it's a pleasure listening to the great literary figures, because I know Dr. Umaram quite well, but at the same time, knowing real treat. This is a Sunday treat for all of us from Rams. And even Rakesh spoke about Valmiki. And Valmiki has written Ramayana. And both Rams are together. See what a kind of a combination is here with Rams and Valmiki, all are coming together on the same platform. So this is what rather iSPELL feel on. KS Ram, this is just a gratitude from all of us, the family of iSPELL, sir. Please accept it.
Thank you.
And this goes to the couple, Dr. Uma Ram, and the couplets were in the safe hands of couple. The couplets have given a wonderful meaning with you couple. So these certificates are for the wonderful couple. This certificate goes to Shomali Saha, who has anchored the complete session in a wonderful way. She has rowed the boat towards the ultimate destination. So certificate of appreciation to Dr. Shomali.
Thank you, sir.
And another certificate is there, which I think I haven't copied, is for Mr. Rakesh Digraskar, which I'll send it to him. Sorry for not copying it, sir. It's my fault. So hope you will pardon me for that.
No problem. I will take it from you.
So thank you very much, all of you. Special thanks to Shaminaz for live streaming it on Facebook. And today I have taken the job of being the admitter to admit all the people instead of Dr. Kshamta, which she has done for the 11 programs of ours. And from next event of ours, we will have a moderator who will start with the initiation of iSPELL, wherein I'll go back and someone will come in the front. So we will have 3 people from iSPELL on the platform. Now we are having only 2. So this is nothing but facilitate to elevate. Thank you very much. It was wonderful presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.